Learn to build full-stack web applications using MongoDB, Express.js, React, and Node.js, aka the MERN stack. This course will guide you through setting up your development environment and creating dynamic, responsive applications from scratch. You'll gain hands-on experience in building RESTful APIs, managing databases, and developing interactive front-end interfaces. By integrating these technologies, you'll be able to create seamless and efficient applications that handle both client-side and server-side operations. Brock created this course.
Hello and welcome to the MERN stack tutorial. In this video, you will learn how to build and deploy your very first full stack application. We're going to start by building an API where we can create products, delete them, update them, and we're going to store all of them in our database. In this video, you will not only learn how to build a full stack app, but also how to have a really clean code base that is modular and maintainable. Let's take a look at the application that we're going to build in this tutorial. So this is the web application that we're going to build and deploy today, which is a product store where we can create products, delete them, and update them. Let's try to create one. If we don't pass anything into this form, it's just going to say, please fill in all fields. Let's give it a name. I'll just say headphones. Let's give it a price as well as an image URL. For the image URL, I'll be grabbing it from the Unsplash. I'll just say copy image address and just paste it and add product. So there we go. It says success and product created successfully. Let's go to the home page and here we can see the latest product has just been added. We can update the price or the name or the image, really anything. Let's update the price and let's say headphones 2. And once we update it, it is just going to update it both in the database and in the UI. We can delete any of our products and this application is going to be completely responsive. So I just switched to the responsive mode. Here is a larger screen. This is the tablets and this is the mobile phone. Here we can see it just works as expected. And on top of it, we have light and dark mode implemented. If we delete all of our products, let me just toggle this mode. Let's see what's going to happen if we delete all of them. Basically, it's going to say no products found and you can create a product from here on this page. This video will give you all the fundamental knowledge to be able to build and deploy a full stack app. And after this, you'll like to build a little bit more complex projects, such as a real-time chat app or a full stack Twitter clone that has authentication implemented. You can check out these videos on the channel to practice even more. So if you are new here, I always share this kind of long tutorials. And if you'd like to get notified, subscribe to the channel to not miss out. And if you're ready, let's get into it. Okay, so to get started with, I have created an empty folder on my desktop. I call it as MERN Crash Course, and then I just open it up in VS Code. Now, we're gonna need two different folders. Let's say Frontend and one for the backend. In the first section of this course, we're gonna be focusing on the backend part where we build an API. Once we build it, we're gonna go ahead and build the frontend part. But first, let's just start with this one. So I will just open up a new terminal as the shortcut using Ctrl-J. And from here, I'd like to just say npm init-y. And make sure you're running this under the root. So you don't say something like cd into the backend and from there type npm init-y. No, this is not what we do. We just go up under the root and this is the default place when you just open up your terminal. Then you would say npm init-y. And the reason that we are doing this in the root and not in the backend is that it is gonna help us to deploy this application easily. So we're gonna put all of our scripts here. This is gonna build the application and start it. And this is gonna make sense once we get into the deployment part. So we need a couple of different packages for this application that we'll be using in the backend. So whenever you install a package for the backend part, you would run it in the root. You would say npm install, and let me just clear up the console so that you can see it clearly up here. I'll say npm install express mongoose and .env. press enter, it is going to install all these packages and put it under the dependencies in this package.json file. So we'll be using Express as our web framework so that we can really build an API easily and just have the routing system. And we're going to be using Mongoose so that we can interact with our database, which is going to be MongoDB. And we are installing this .env package so that we can really access to our .env, environment variables. And you're going to see how to use all of them as we progress in this course. So we got all of our dependencies. It created a node modules folder for us and a package log JSON. Now we can create a file, let's say server.js. You can call this anything. Some people call it as index.js, main.js, app.js. All of them are really conventions. The one that I'd like to use is just server.js, which is going to be the entry point for our API. So I'll say server.js and let's try to import Express and create an Express app. Now the traditional way of creating it, you would say const Express and say require Express, but I don't really want to use this require syntax. We can use a little bit more modern syntax, which is going to be ES modules. So we would say import Express from Express. And to be able to use this, you need to go under the package.json and create this field called type. And by default, it is common.js. Here we can see, but we'll be using module. So once you make it module, you can now use import export syntax. Let's delete this and then just say const app express, call the function, and then let's listen for a port. I'll say app.listen, let's say 5000. This is going to be our port, and we are going to call this callback function once it is ready. So we could say console log server started at localhost and 5000. Let's try to save this and maybe try to run this file. Now what you can do is just say node and first cd into the backend. So if you just type back and press tab, it's gonna just auto complete it, and you could say server and tab again, it is gonna select this file. Now you can run this file just like this, and it should say server started at localhost 5000. If you want to, just have a better command for this that is a little bit more short or convenient, you can go here under the scripts and you could say, let's say dev, and you would say something like node, let's say backend, if I can type, and then server.js file. Now, instead of typing this to the terminal, let's just kill this and say npm run dev. So it is going to do the exact same thing, but basically you're running the dev script. And this is the convention that we do. Now, if I go ahead and change anything here on this file, let's say localhost 5000 and maybe hello, right? Let's save. It is not going to refresh this, right? It is not going to restart it. What you need to do is just kill this with Control-C and rerun this. Now you can see the updated version, but this is not really convenient. What we can do is just install a package that is going to do this thing for us. So I'll just kill this, clear up my console, and just say npm install nodemon, and we can put -d, which is going to make it a dev dependency. So let's take a look at it under the package.json file. There we go, we got the nodemon, and under here we could say, instead of running it with node, just try to run with nodemon. Let's save, and if we just say npm run dev, just like this, and whenever we do some update, let's first see, okay, so this is the result that we have. Let's delete this, save it. It is going to immediately restart it for us. Okay, so that was the really first thing that we need to do, creating a script and just using nodemon so that we can listen for any change in our server file. Let's create a route. This is how we can do. Let's just listen for the get method. I'll say app.get. If we go into the root route, which is going to be like localhost 5000 port, and if you say, hello or maybe users, then you would update this part to be users. But for now, let's just visit the home page. Okay, then we're gonna get this controller function. Okay, this is how you type it. Then you would get the request and response. From the response, let's just say send server is ready. Now let's try to visit this port or this domain. There we go. It just says server is ready. And whenever you do some changes, let's say 1, 2, 3, save it, it's going to restart it. And if you refresh this page, it is just going to be live. And now the very first thing we'd like to create is maybe the products route. So we're going to say products, and it is going to give us all the products that we have in the database, but we don't even have a database at this point. Let's try to create one, which is going to be MongoDB. So I'll open up the Chrome and I'll just say mongodb.com. If you don't have an account, go ahead and create one. It is free to get started with, no credit card required. So I have an account, I'll just sign in. And once we sign in, it should take us to the dashboard page. So I just logged in and it took me to the overview page. Let's say create a new project. And from here, it's going to ask us for a name. Let's say MERN course, and I will say next. Then this is going to be the project owner. In this case, this is going to be you. Let's say create a project. Then it's going to take us to this page. Let's say create a cluster, and we would like to create one for free. So I will select this one. The name could be the default, and we could just say create the deployment. And then it's going to take you to this page. Just make sure you copy the password and put it into the VS Code. So just put it here. We'll be using it in a second. Let's comment this out and go here, just say create the user. And we'd like to connect to this database from our Node.js application. So we will select this one and then just say close, I think. Yep, let's just say close. It should give us a connection string. So from here, you could say get connection string. And it's going to give you this connection string that you can copy. And we're going to paste it into a file called .env. Let's say mongo _URI and just paste it. This is going to be the connection string, which we can use to be able to connect our database. Now for the password placeholder, what you'll be doing is cut this from here and paste it just like this. And for the database name, let's say this is going to be products. We should be putting it before this question mark. There we go. Let's save this file, maybe delete this and save. And I think there is nothing else that we should do. We can close this. Maybe one more optimization. We could just go under the network access. And from here, you should be able to see your IP address listed. Now it might change, so it is not going to allow you to connect to this database. What you can do in the development is just say allow access from anywhere, which is going to be this access list. Let's say confirm. This is going to take a bit time. Once this is active, we should be good to go. Okay, now that this is active, we can go ahead and connect to this database. So I'll just go into the database section. And if we take a look at the collections, we don't really have anything here because we didn't create anything so far. Now let's just try to connect to this one. What I'll be doing is just maybe, so from here, we would like to use this Mongo URI connection string. And how can we use it, right? It is under the .env file. So if you say something like console log process.env and Mongo _URI, this is how we called it, right? If you save this, you're going to see undefined in the console. You cannot access to it by default. That's why we installed this package called .env. So we'll go here and then just say import .env from .env package, and we're going to call the config function. So let's say .env config. Now if you save, you should be able to see this content on your terminal. That means you can access to it and just read it. So we'll be using this to be able to connect our database. I'll create a folder called config, and inside I'll say db.js. Let's create a function and I'll just export this. Let's say export const connect db. This is going to be an async function, and here we could have a try catch. In the try, we'll be using Mongoose package to be able to connect to our database. So I will just auto accept this and walk you through. We don't really need these objects. These were needed in the past, but not anymore. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just import the Mongoose at the top. Let's say import Mongoose from Mongoose. So this is the function. This is basically going to be running to be able to connect to our database by using the connection string that we have. Instead of maybe using this .env here, we can really copy this and put it here, because I think we're not going to be using it in this file. Even if you do, so if you put it here, you can still access to it from here. So maybe this is what I'll be doing. Just have this file as it is and have my .env configuration in the server.js. Okay, in the catch case, we could say, I don't know, let's say console log the error with error message, and we can just say process.exit with the status code of 1. That means there was an error. So let me just put a comment. 1 code means a failure, right? But 0 means success. And here, since we are in the catch, this is going to be a failure, right? Let's say process code 1 means exit. Okay, I'll just leave it for you so that you can have it in the code base. This is going to be the function, and we'll like to call this as soon as we listen to our application. I'll just say call the connectdb function, and just make sure you put .js at the end up here so that it doesn't crash. Now let's try to save this file and see it from our terminal. This is going to take a bit of time. Let's just wait. It should say server started at localhost and MongoDB connected. There we can see. We can also delete this console log from here. But yeah, we just make sure that we can connect to our database, which is hosted on MongoDB Atlas. Okay, so with this, we can connect to our database. And now maybe it is time to create some collections, which is going to be products, right? Because in our application, we would be storing some products. And before we try to write any code, let's just try to understand the difference between tables and collections. So you might be asking, why don't we have some tables here, but instead we have collections? Well, it's because MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and something like MySQL or Postgres is a SQL database. That means they store data in the tables, right? They have rows and columns. But instead in MongoDB, we have collections, and inside each collection, we have documents. So just to give an example, let's say we have a collection called, let's say products, and under the products, we could have multiple different documents, right? Let's just say we'll have 1, 2, and 3 different documents. One would be a smart watch, right? I'll just duplicate this. Let's say we will have earbuds, and we will have some, I don't know, let's say shoes, right? So each of them called as a document. So I'll just say document, and each of these, like let's say a product. So this, So what we call as products is going to be the collection, right? I'll just duplicate this, and let's say this is going to be our collection. And maybe in your application, you would like to also have a collection for the users, right? You would say you would like to have one more collection. This is going to be called as users. And for each user, we will have a document. So whenever a user sign up, you would store it under a document. So one could be for John, Jane, Bob, etc. So I think this makes it clear that the difference between the SQL database and NoSQL databases, where they store the data in tables, in rows and columns, but instead in MongoDB, we have collections, and you can create multiple collections, and each collection is going to have multiple documents. And to get started with, we'll be creating a products collection. And to be able to do so, we're going to create a model by using Mongoose. This is the package that we have installed that is, under the package.json Mongoose package. So what you would do is just create a folder called models, and you can really just give it a name. So you can say this is going to be the product model. So you could say product.js, right? This is one convention that you could use. The other one is just to make it uppercase. And the other one that I'd like to use is just say product.model.js. So even though logo changes, this is just a regular JavaScript file and nothing else. You can use any convention. As I said, you could say just product.js, but what I'll be using is just going to be the product, let's say product.model.js. And now let's just try to create our product model. I will say, let's say import mongoose from mongoose. Then first we need to create a schema. So we'll say product schema, and we'll say mongoose.schema, and just open up this object. And you can put new at the beginning, or you don't. It just works in either case. Let's in this case put it, and here each product is gonna have a name, a price, and an image. So let's say name, and open up an object so that we can really give our requirements. Let's say type is going to be string, and required field is going to be true. So if a user wants to create a product, they should definitely provide the name. Otherwise, it is going to give errors. Let's say there is going to be a price field for each product. Type will be number, and this is going to be required as well. And then after the price, lastly, we'll have the image. And this is again is going to be type of string, and required is going to be true. Now, one more optimization, or not optimization, but really an option that we could add. Let's say put this object, we will say timestamps is going to be true. So whenever you create a product, this timestamps just make sure that it has the created at and updated at fields on each document. So this is just something to keep in mind. Then maybe I can just leave it as a comment here. And now that we have a schema, depending on the schema, we'd like to create our product model. So I'll say const product, and then this is going to be equal to mongoose.model, and this is how we type it, product and product schema. And finally, we'll just say export default as product, because we'll be using it in different files that we'll have later in the video. So basically, this says to Mongoose that you should create a model or a collection called product. And this is the schema that you should take a look. So each product should have these fields that we have provided. And one more question that you might have, why don't we call this as products, but instead we call it as product? It is uppercase and it is singular. Well, it's because Mongoose is going to take a look at it, and it is going to convert it to be something like products, right? It is going to make it to be plural, and just take the first letter and make it lowercase. This is something that Mongoose will handle for you. It just wants you to put the singular and the capitalized version of it. Okay, so this is the entire file that we would need. And once we create a product, you're going to actually see in the database, we're going to get this products collection. And I will mention this just in a second. Let's say if this is going to be our product model. Now we'd like to create product models. I mean, like product documents, right? Let's create an endpoint for this. I will say if we visit the products with the post method, right? Because whenever you want to create something, then you would probably use the post method so that you can really send some data along with the request. I will go here and just try to put my function logic. Okay, so just a quick pause here. For those of you that don't know what is an API in the first place, let's try to understand it pretty quickly. It's actually pretty simple than you think. Well, API stands for Application Programming Interface. That sounds really complex, but basically it is just that man in the middle. So let's take a look at this analogy that we have. When a customer goes into the restaurant, they just give a request, right? They just say, hey, give me this order. And waiter takes it, bring it to the chef, right? To the kitchen, and get some response back and navigate it back to the client. So this is all it does. In this case, we have a user with a browser. Let's say they want to log in or sign up. In this case, let's say they're trying to log in. They send the request to our API, and API just checks for the credentials. Does it match with we have in the database, right? It's going to take a look at the username, the password. If they are correct, it's going to say in the response, hey, you can log in. But else, hey, you cannot log in, right? So it is that man in the middle. It just lets two different applications to talk with each other, right? We have our database application, let's say, or the server, and we have our React application on the client. It just allows it to like communicate with each, right? And in our application, we'd like to build an API for the products so that users can create products, delete them, update them, or get all of them. They are going to send a request to our API, and this API is just going to work with our database, either create it, update it, delete it, or get it from there and send a response back to the client. So this is the entire logic for an API in the simple terms. I hope this makes sense. And now let's just try to move on with the video. Now let's go into the function body and just maybe make this function to be async so that we can use await keyword. And first I'd like to get the product. Let's say product. This is going to be coming from the request.body, which is something that user will pass, right? So this is the user body, let's say user will send this data, right? This is what we just extracted from the request.body, and we can just check for the requirements. So I'll say if product.name is empty, this is how we can do it. Or if product.price is empty, or image, if any of them are not provided, we could say return a response with the status code of 400, where we say JSON of success of false, and message could be please provide all fields. And if we pass this if check, that means user passed everything to us. We can create a new product. So I will say await. Maybe instead of saying await, let's just say new product, right? This product is coming from the product model.js file that we just created. So it is this product object. Then we'll say product and put the product body that we just got from the user. It has the name, price, and image. And then we can create a try catch. In the try, I will say await new product.save. This is going to save it to the database. And once we do so, we can say res.status of 201, which means something created, and success of true. And for the data, we can just return the new product, just like this. And in the catch, we could console log something for debugging purposes. Let's say console.error, and let's say error in how did we call it? Let's say create product, and we can put the error dot message, right? Okay, just like this. And from here we could say res dot status of 500, success of false, and server error, just like this. And also we are using 500 status code because this is an internal server error, right? What we can do is maybe just save it and try to test this out. To be able to test this out without having a front-end application, I'll be using Postman desktop application. So you can go ahead and install it for free. I already have it. So I'll just maybe open this up. So this is the desktop application that we have. So under the workspaces, I have a bunch of different workspaces for the previous tutorials. Let's try to create a new one. I'll say blank. Let's say next, give it a name. I'll say MERN crash course. And let's say this is going to be only for me. Let's say create. There we go. Now we can create collections. Let's say one collection for the products, because this is what we will be testing. Let's say products, and we can add a request into here. So I'll say add request. We can give it a name. So I'll say create product, or maybe just create, doesn't really matter. Then let's save, change the method. It's going to be post method because this is how we configured it. Let's see. Okay, we said this is going to be a post method to the products. I'll go into the Postman. Our URL is going to be http localhost 5000 / products. Now, one more best practice that we could do is just prefix it with API so that we know this is our API service. I'll go ahead and prefix it with the API and just make sure you put the /. Okay, just like this, save this file. Now we can really send our product data. I'll go here under the body, and under the role, just make sure you select the JSON. Now, whenever you send something like some fields, let's say name is going to be smartwatch, let's say price is going to be, I don't know, let's say 123, right? 0.99, or maybe let's just make it like this. Let's give it an image. And for the image, I just said example.com/image. Now to be able to grab this data, we have used this request.body. But to be able to make sure this works, we need to use this configuration up here. I'll say app.use Express.js. So this is a middleware that allows us to, parse this request.body. So let's say allows us to accept JSON data in the body, right? In the request.body. Okay, so this is what we call a middleware, and middleware is just a function that runs before you send a response back to the client, right? So this is the function that we just used. Now, if we save, hopefully we should be able to test this out. I'll go here, and let's say if we didn't provide the image, okay, we just have name and price. Let's send it. It should say something like success or false, please provide all the fields. Let's put the image and send it. Now, there we go, success of true, and we got the data back, which is something that created in the database. Let's take a look at it. I'll go into the MongoDB, just say refresh this page under the collections. There we go, we have our products with, products collection with one product that is just being created. It has _ID field. This is what MongoDB creates by default. Then we give name, price, image, created that and updated that. We got this because we said that we'll be using this field, right? Timestamps of true. And even though we called it as product as singular, now we just have it as products. So these are the things that I mentioned previously, and now we can see it in action. Now we can create a different endpoint so that we can really delete a product. So in the now, how do I say it? You might be asking, why do we put all of our functions into this file? Couldn't we create a different folder and have them and just make this file a little bit more organized? Well, you're absolutely correct, and this is what we're going to be doing. For now, just to keep this a little bit more beginner friendly, I'll put everything into this file, and I will have an optimization section where we can really make this code base a little bit more clean. Okay, so this is something just to keep in mind. Let me just zoom in. We're going to create a different endpoint. Let's say app.delete, which is going to be for the delete method. Let's say /API/products. And to be able to delete a product, we should pass an ID, right? So we're going to, let's say we want to delete this one. We are going to get the ID, copy it, and we're going to paste it to the endpoint, right? We'll just say delete this product, and that's why we need to pass this ID. Now, to be able to get this ID, we're going to be using this colon and ID. This means this is going to be dynamic. This could be any value that user can pass. And let's say we're going to have a controller function for this, async request and response. Call this function. Okay, here we would like to just delete it. So I will go into the function body, and what I'd like to do is just get this ID from the URL, right? I will say const and destructure the ID coming from request.prems. So we call this as ID because this is what we passed here. If you say something like hello, then you would say hello to here as well. But since we're using ID, this is what we called it. Let's say console log the ID just to see it in the terminal, and let's create an endpoint for this as well. A request. So I'll delete this. This is what we had previously. We can leave it for the create product request, right? Just save this file and say duplicate this. Maybe we can close these. Okay, instead of create product copy, let's say delete product. Let's change the endpoint or the request API products. If I just put 1, 2, 3, save it and send it. Now it says like keeps loading because we didn't send any response back. Take a look at the terminal. We should be able to see the ID. This is what we passed, right? If you say 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's say send it, we're gonna just see it in the terminal. So this is how we can grab it, and depending on this ID, we're gonna check for it in the database. So let's say maybe just delete this and say try and catch. In the try, we will say await product dot find by ID and delete. So we're gonna pass the ID into it. Then let's say res.json success of true. Maybe we can send a status as well. Let's say status, call this function 200 JSON of success of true and message product deleted. Let's save and just try to get this ID from the database and paste it here. And I will just say send it. Okay, so it says product deleted. Let's try to refresh this and it should be gone. There we go. There are 0 results under the products collection. Now what we can do is just to handle this case, if user pass something like 1, 2, 3 and send it. So this doesn't send us any response back, right? Maybe we can handle it under the catch. Let's go under the catch, just say res.status of 404 product not found. Let's just say send. There we go. We just handled this case as well under the under the catch block. Now let's try to create a couple of different products so that we can really get them. So let's shrink this. I'll say smartwatch, send it. It has just been created. Let's say smartwatch 2. We can update the price and let's say 3 just to make this work. Now we're going to create an endpoint or maybe a request from here. Let's say duplicate this one. We will just say get all products. Okay, we're going to save this, make it to be get method. And this is going to be our endpoint. We'll just say API products with the get method. It should give us all the methods that we all the products that we have. Let's save this and save this one as well. Close these. So we'd like to just create this endpoint, right? I'll go into the VS Code. Okay, maybe up here before the create, I'd like to just create a get method. Let's say app.get/API/products. We're going to just find all the products that we have in the database. Let's say try catch. In the try const products, which is going to be coming from our product model. Let's say product.find. And if you pass an empty object, this means basically fetch all the products that we have in the database. And this is what you'd like to have. Let's say res dot maybe status of 200, JSON of success, and for the data we can return the products. In the catch, let's just put a console log. I'll say error in fetching products and res dot status of 500 with like server error, right? So we are putting this console logs just for debugging purposes. In the terminal, we should be able to see those. Let's put a console log for this as well. Let's say error in deleting product. Now we can just test this endpoint. I'll go here, just say give me the products. In the database, I just had 3 different products, right? This is the first one, second one, and the third one. And the data is just the exact same thing that we put. Smartwatch 1, the 2, and the third one with the related prices. Okay, the very last endpoint that we need is to be able to update a product. So let's maybe duplicate this one as well. Here I'll just say update a product. Let's say this is going to be a put method. You could also use patch for updating, but we'll go with put in this case. And to be able to update a product, we'd like to pass the product ID, right? So we'll just go here and put some ID for the product. This is the endpoint that we will have. And if you just see this doesn't update to put method, if you save this file, it should update it. Let's try to create this endpoint pretty quickly. I will shrink all these, and at the below the post method, I'll say app.put. You can really put the patch as well. So you would use the patch method when you just update some fields on the resource. And if you are updating all the fields, then you would put the put method. This is how it's known, but it doesn't really matter that much. So I think it is not really crucial to use put or patch, at least in your personal projects, right? Let's say /API/products and the ID of the product that we'd like to update. We're gonna have this async function. Let's say request and response. This is what we'd like to call. And from here, we'll just try to first get the ID from the request.params, just like what we have done under the delete method. And we can just say const give us the product under the request.body. So this is going to be the fields such as name, image, and price. Whatever the user wants to update, he might want to update all of them at once or just some of them, right? And to be able to update it, we will just say try and catch. In the try, we will just say await product find by ID and update. There we go. We just have an autocomplete. Then we're going to put the ID of the product and the fields that we'd like to update. So we're just going to put the product object that is coming from the request.body. And you can put one more object called new true. And if you hover over this, it says what this does. Well, basically, by default, this method is going to return you the old document, right, before the update happened. And if you say new is going to be true, then it is going to give you the updated object, right? We can just say const, this is going to be the updated product, and we'd like to send this in the response. I'll say res.status of 200, success of true, and we can return the updated product. Then let's say res.status of 404 in the catch case, or maybe let's say 500, JSON of success of false, message server error. This could be. If you would like to handle the 404 case, let's say user just passed an ID, something like 123, which is something that you don't have in the database. So you could say 404 error, and we can do it before the try. Let's say if this is how we can do it. Let's say mongoose.types object ID. If it is not a valid ID that user is sending, so you would say if it is not valid by putting this bang operator, right? In this case, we're just going to say return res.status of 404.json, success or false, and we could say invalid product ID or something like product not found, right? You would give some kind of message that user knows the ID they pass is not valid. And I think this error handling could be a little bit more better under the catch, but this is also fine. We just say there was a server error that we couldn't really handle, but most of the time we'll be hitting this part. Probably the ID will be there because they're going to be deleting it from the front-end application. Okay, so this is going to be our endpoint, I think. So they are not going to be deleting, by the way. We are in the updating case, and the ID will be always in the front end. Okay, so let's try to save this and just test this out. I'd like to update the first product that we had. Let's take a look at it in the database. The name is smartwatch, right? I'd like to make it to be maybe smartwatch 1. I'll get the ID and go into the postman. I'll put the ID, and for the body, I will say the name is going to be smartwatch 1. And this is the only place I'd like to update. Let's say send. Okay, success of true. Let's refresh our database. We should be able to get that update. Okay, there we go. And let's say you would like to update all these fields. I will say maybe use Control Z to bring this back. Smartwatch updated, and price could be let's say just 99 in example.com image.1, let's say. It is just going to go ahead and update all these fields that you can see from here or from the database. Okay, so smartwatch updated, the price, and then the image. So everything seems to be working. what we can do is just maybe make this code base a little bit more modular, right? At this point, this is getting out of hand where we just have all of our methods here. What we can do is creating a routes folder and create a product route. So I'll say product, you can just call it as .js. As I said, I'd like to just keep this convention. That's why I'll say route.js. And this is just a regular JavaScript function. Even though we have route as the extension, it is just the name and not really the extension. The extension here is JavaScript. Okay, so what I'll be saying is just import Express from Express, and let's say const router express.router, and you would say export default the router. Now we're gonna have all of our endpoints in this file actually. So what I can just do, go here and cut all of them. We have delete, put, post, and get. Cut all of them and put it here. And instead of app, we're gonna call them as router because this is what we have. So I will just say Control D twice or maybe 3 times. So I just selected all of them. I'll say router. Okay, there we go. Now this should be working, but we need to update this file as well. So I'll say app.use, let's say /API/products. In this case, we would like to import a route. Let's delete these because we're not using it. Let's say import product routes. From the routes folder, we have the product route.js file. Okay, we're gonna put it into here. And let's also update this file. We're gonna delete this API part, this products part as well, right? I'll just delete all of them and I'll explain what this means basically. Just follow along with me. We're gonna delete all of these sections. Oops, so we should be deleting this part. Okay, let me just put them side by side and just try to explain. But before that, let's try to import this product and just make sure we put .js at the end, and also just import the mongoose just like this. Okay, let's put them side by side. Just try to understand what did just happen. When we visit API/products/ just nothing, we're gonna call this function. And if we visit / again with the post method, we're gonna call this function, right? And if we visit like /and we're gonna call this function, and same for this one, but with the delete method. So everything that we have in this file is gonna be prefixed with /API/products. Let's say if you want to get all the products, this is how it's gonna be prefixed, /API, let's say, /products. And now in this way, our code is a lot more clean because in the server.js file, this is the only thing that we need to put for the product routes. So whatever you put here, let's say you put hello, then this is going to be prefixed with /API/products. Okay, let me just make sure that this is completely clear. I'll just say add a new request that is a get method. And let's say you would like to visit /API/products/hello. Then once you send this, it is actually going to go ahead and hit this one because this is the route that we have, /API/products/hello with the get method. And like this is what we have just done, and I hope it makes sense. And obviously we don't need this method, so we could just say delete this one. Now in this way, our code is a little bit more clean, but not completely, right? This file is just getting out of hand if we have multiple different functions. What we can do is just a controller for all these functions. So I'll say under the backend, we'd like to have the controllers, and the controller that we'll have is going to be product.controller.js. And again, you can delete this .controller part if you really want to. The first controller I'll have is to get products. So I will cut this from here and just say export const, like get products. which is going to be an async function that I just paste. And let's try to import the product model.js. Let's say create the product, and we can import it, by the way. Let's say get products from this file, right? Let me just shrink this, maybe close these. Okay. And let's try to create this function, which is to create a product, right? I'll cut it. I'll say export const create product and equal to this value that we just had. Let's save this one as well. Then we'll go here to say create product, which is coming from this file. Let's say update one, cut this. I'll just go here, export const update product, and we should paste the value to here, right? This is the function that we had previously. And we also need to make sure that we imported the mongoose in this file. Okay, let's say update product, and finally delete a product. Let's shrink all of these. Const delete product is going to be equal to this function that we had. Let's save and import this. Now we can delete these because we are not using them. And okay, I hope this makes sense at this point. In our server.js, we created one route for products. Once we hit here, we're going to be calling this function or this file. We're going to check if it is a get method, post method, put, or delete. For all of them, we have different functions, right? And we check for the URL. And these are going to be prefixed with /API/products. And for each of them, we're calling the related function that we have created under the controllers folder, right? I hope at this point this makes sense. And we can just test this out. It is working exactly the same as before. Let's try to update this to be smartwatch updated to be 123. Update it. It should update, and we can take a look at it in the database. It should be the latest value we just give. And we can delete one. Let's copy this ID, go here and just try to delete this. Okay, product deleted. You can take a look at the database. Let's just make sure that it actually worked. We had 3 different values, but now we just have only 2 different values, right? Or documents. We can get all of them. Here we go. It just works. And we can also create a product. I'll say, instead of smartwatch, let's just say shoes. You can give any value and just create it. It should create it in our database. Okay, now we have 3 different products with the latest one being added. So with this, I think we have just created our backend part, right? This is how easy it is to create an API. Basically, we have a route for the API products, and for each route, we just put them under this file with their methods and their related endpoints. We have the controller functions. For each of them, we are using Mongoose to be able to communicate with our database, as well as this product model that we have created so that we can really get some products, update them, delete them. Then other than this, we have the configuration for the .env, right? We have this .env file. We can read this content just because we configured this function, or we just call this function, right? Then we have the database file where we can connect to it with this function, which we are using it in this callback function. And I hope all this makes sense now. The very next thing we'll be doing is building the front end part, and I'll see you in the next section. Okay, so welcome back. In this section, we'd like to build our front end application. But before that, there is just 1 or 2 things that I just want to update quickly. Instead of using this port as a hard-coded value, what I'd like to do is just get this value from the environment variables, which is a well-known practice. So let's just say port is going to be 5000, right? Let's save, and here let's just grab it. I will say process. Let me just make it like this. .env port, which is going to be equal to this variable. Let's say port. And if this is not available, let's say you forgot to add this, right? If it is undefined or something like that, then you can just put this hard-coded value as a fallback. Now we can really use this down here, right? And let's delete this. We could just say this is going to be coming from the port variable. So that was the first thing. We haven't changed anything in terms of functionality. It is still listening on the port 5000, but instead this is coming from the environment variables. Okay, now let's just try to see in the terminal. I killed it. Let me just say npm run dev, and we should be able to see this text with 5000. And let's just wait for it. Okay, come on. So maybe it tries to start. Okay, there we go. Now it says 5000. If you go make this one, let's say 5001, save this file again, it's gonna restart it, and it just updated. That means this value is coming from the actual .env file. Okay, now let's save this so that it is 5000 again, right? There is one more thing that I just want to update under the controllers. Under the delete product, here we just return 404. Instead, what I would like to do is just make this 500 status code, and for the message, I'll just say server error, right? Just like this, and I'll go up here and I'll get the actual this part. So if the ID is not a valid ID, we could just return that error. So if it is invalid, right, we just negate it. We return 404 invalid product ID. Okay, this is gonna be it for it. Let's save, and now we can actually go ahead and build the front-end application. So I'll just open up my terminal. Let's create a new one. I will cd into the front end, and I will say npm, let me just give a bit space, create vite add latest, and I'll just put that at the end. So this dot means initialize it under the current folder, which is the front end, right? Let's say React and JavaScript. If you really want to, you can go with the TypeScript. Just to keep this as beginner friendly as possible, I'll go with the JavaScript option. Once we clicked it, now it is going to create all these files and folders for us. Now it says run npm install, which is going to give us the node modules folder that we would need. And while this is installing, let's take a look at the Chakra UI. So let me just bring my Chrome right here. We will say Chakra UI, which is going to be our UI component library that we'll be using just to speed up the process. So let's say get started. It has a bunch of different components. Let's take a look at some of them. Like that are accordions, tabs, buttons, dialogues, toasts, and we'll be using a bunch of different components, and it's just gonna make everything super fast for us. And now let's say getting started, right? Click to it, and below here we should have the vite option. And once you clicked it, you should be able to copy this and paste it into your terminal. And I don't know why this takes so long, but let's just wait for it. Once this is done, I'll just be right back. Okay, so looks like it has just been installed. I'll just paste what I have copied. I'm gonna press enter, and it's gonna install all these packages so that we can initialize the Chakra UI. Let's take a look at the next step. It is the provider setup. So we need to wrap our application with this Chakra provider. I'll copy this and go into the main.jsx. Okay, so what we have here is the app component, which is the starter place, right? The entry point for our application. Here they just want us to wrap our app component with the Chakra provider so that we can use the components that are coming from this Chakra UI, right? Okay, now that we wrapped it, let's try to import it, which is coming from here, right? I'll copy it, paste it. There we go. Now we just wrapped our application with it. We can delete the index.css and app.css. We're not going to be using those files. Okay, just like this, and let's go into the app.jsx, delete everything basically, and here I'll just say maybe just import a button from Chakra, and let's just say hello into it. Let's say button coming from Chakra, and let's try to run this npm run dev, which should open. open up on this port. I'll just control click to it. There we go. And we should be able to see a button. Okay, so this is how it's gonna look like. Maybe in your case it is light mode. In my case it is dark, but we're gonna fix it. Now, the very first thing I think we'd like to do is just gonna be building the navbar component. So this is how it's gonna look like. This is our navbar component. Basically, we have one element on the left, right, and one thing on the right, which is like two different buttons. When we click to this one, it is gonna take us to the create page, and this is gonna just toggle the theme. It's gonna go between light and dark mode. So yeah, let's just try to build this. Let's see here, go into the VS Code, shrink this, maybe delete this. Now, in our application, we'd like to have multiple pages, such as homepage, create page, and maybe after this tutorial, you could add more pages. To be able to make that work, we can install this package. So I'll just open up a new terminal, cd into the front end, and I'll say npm install react-router-dom. Okay, so to be able to make this work, we should go under the main.jsx and wrap our application with something called browser router component, right? Let's just wrap our application with it and we can import it now. Obviously, it doesn't give us any suggestions, but let's grab it like this and maybe we can put it up here. Okay, so what we have done here is basically wrap our entire application with the browser router component so that we can use any other components that are coming from this package, which is going to be things like routes, so that we can really have different pages. So what I'll be doing is just say, first let's create a box, which is a div that is coming from Chakra. Let's say minimum height is going to be 100 VH, so it's going to take the entire screen. And below this, we could have a navbar component, which is something that we'll create just in a second. And below this, actually, we're going to have our routes. I'll say routes, import it, and now we can have our specific routes. So let's say just one route, and let's maybe try to import it. Okay, the path, when we visit the homepage, we would like to see this element, which is going to be the homepage component. This is something that we'll just create in a second. Let's duplicate this. If we visit the create page, then we're going to see the create page component, right? Let's try to create those. So I'll delete this assets. We're not going to be using it. Let's say source pages, and let's create a components folder as well. Okay, under the components, we can put the navbar.jsx. And under the pages, we could put the homepage.jsx as well as the create page. Oops, let's say .jsx. Okay, now I'll be using this snippet RESTful to get this auto-completed code. If you don't know how to get this, it's probably you're not using this VS Code extension. It is this one. Okay, so once you install it, it should be working out actually. You can just say RESTful and get the auto-completed code, which is really convenient. So this just gives you a React functional component. Let's do the same thing for these, for the navbar as well. Let's close them with Control W. Then we can just go ahead and import them. So it doesn't auto-suggest anything. Let's say this is going to be coming from this. Let's get the home page as well. I will say home page. Okay, and finally, we're going to get the navbar component. Let's try to auto import it. Okay, so it doesn't give it. Okay, so for some reason it doesn't work. Let's say import navbar from the components. There we go. Now we can delete the button. We are not using it. And with the help of this now, we can have different routes, right? So we have the home page and create page. Let's try to see how it's going to look like. There we go. Now we are in the home page and we can still see the navbar. It's because it is above the routes. This means whichever page you visit, you're always going to see the navbar component. That's why we put it before, we put it above the routes, right? We don't put it under the routes. Let's try to visit the create page. I'll go here and then I'll just say create. There we go. We can see the create page component. Now let's try to build the create page. Maybe before that I said we're going to be building the navbar component. So let's try to build it. I'll go into the navbar component, right? And here we'll be writing basically some Chakra UI components. Let's say we're going to have a container component. Now, at any point, if you have some questions about these components, you can basically visit the Chakra documentation and just search for it. So let's say container, and there you go. We just have a container component, which is something that actually centers the content. You can read about this. There are different sizes where you can just say maximum width, give the size that you'd like to give. I'll just go here and I'll say maximum width is going to be 1140 pixels, right? This is going to be the maximum width. Let's say padding X is going to be 4, and inside, let's say we're going to have a flex component, right? This is how you get the flex in Chakra. Let's give a couple of different styles. Let's say height is going to be 16, and we're going to have align items to be centered, and we'll have justify content space between, so that one item is on the very left and the other one is on the very right. They are spaced out, right? Space is between in this case. That's why we actually use this justify content. Let's say the flex direction is going to be responsive. So you could say on the base screen and above, it is going to be column, but smaller screens and above, it is going to be row. I'll explain what this does. If you don't understand, just wait for a second. Let's say we're going to have a text element. Again, it is coming from Chakra. It's going to have a couple of different styles. Now, I'm using gradients for this. Let's just say gradients. Okay, so this is actually coming from the documentation. They just tell you how you can create these kind of gradients for the text as well. This is what we'll be using, because if you just take a look at it, we go from this bright blue color to a little bit dark one. This is the exact same thing actually that they do using background gradient, background clip, and it just works out. What I'll be doing is just basically copy it and paste it. You can grab it from the GitHub repo or just maybe type it down. The link will be in the description. And let's get this link component from React Router DOM. Okay, so if we save, we should be able to see a product store text with this emoji and with these styles, right? Font size is being responsive. In smaller screens, it is 22, and smaller screens and above, it is 28. Font weight is bold, uppercase, text align centered, and we have this gradient color. And below this text, we're going to have one horizontal stack. Let's say H stack. It should be like this, and this is going to be coming from the Chakra UI. Let's import it and scroll. We'll just give spacing of 2, and let's say align items is going to be centered. So these are the components. As I said, you can always find it from the documentation. I'll just have a link. Let's say this is going to take us to the create page. Let's say create, and this is going to have a button. So what we are trying to build, let's just say button. What we are trying to build is basically this part now, a button as well as a different button, but this is going to take us, it's going to just toggle the light mode state, right? Let's import the button from Chakra UI. Inside this button, we will say, have this icon, let's say plus square icon. And to be able to make this work, I think we're using React icons. Let's just try to install that package. I'll say npm install react-icons, which is a package that we could use to be able to get icons. So if you search for it, you're going to get to this page, and you can really just search for anything. Let's say plus icon, and there are really different options. You can click to it, get the import as well as the JSX, and just paste it into your code base. And this is what we'll be using. We just installed it, and now let's try to get this icon. And also there are Chakra UI icons if you want to use them. So I just want to mention it. I'll just say icons, or maybe just icon. let's see. So you can actually install the Chakra UI icons as well. So I'll just import it for those of you guys that want to see the usage. They have limited amount of icons. It is not as rich as the React icons, but still you have some useful icons. So the plus, I think, is coming from here. I'll just say plus. Okay, so I believe it is coming from this Chakra icons. Let's just try to see if this is gonna work or not. Now that we have installed the packages, let's just try to grab the import. I will paste it like this, and let's try to give it a size. I'll say font size is gonna be 20, and finally we'll have one more button, but maybe before that, let's just save and see the output. Okay, so this is how that looks, right? We have maximum width of 1140. This is what we have given, right? This is what we just said. It is going to be a container, so it is always in the middle of the screen, and we have justified space of between something on the left, something on the right, and we just have this button. If we click to it, it's going to take us to the create page. If we click to this one, it's going to take us to the home page. Let's try to build this second button so that we can toggle the state. I'll go here under the first button, which is a link. Maybe we can create a different button, and we'll just now, we need to get a function actually to be able to toggle the color mode. I'll say on click toggle color mode, which is going to be coming from a hook. So let's go above. I'll just say use color mode. This is a hook coming from Chakra UI. It is going to give you these values. Now what we can do is basically just say when we click to this button, you should toggle the color mode. And inside this, we will say if color mode is light, then you can show this emoji, but otherwise you can show the sun emoji, right? Let's save, and this is how it's gonna look like. You can really toggle the state. Instead of this emoji, I'll be using icons. So the first one is gonna be, let's say IO moon, right? And the second one is gonna be actually sun. I'll just go here, let's say LU sun, which is gonna be size of 20. Okay, and these are gonna be coming from the React icons package. Let's just go scroll to the top and import them. Okay, let's save, and it should be working out just like this that we have. What we can do also, change the container background color depending on the color state. So we can go here for the container. I will say the background color is going to be use color mode value, and we can just say gray of 100 and gray of 900. So the first one is for the light mode, the second value is for the dark mode. Let's save and just try to test this out. There you can see now the color is a little bit different from the rest of the application, right? If we go to the light mode, it also changes. But I think this doesn't look really good, right? We have this different colors and it is not really good, right? What we can do is delete it from here and go into the app.jsx and put it into this box. Let's put it, try to import it, and we can remove this import from here because we are not using it. And now if we save, we can really give different colors for the light mode, and dark mode is gonna update the entire UI. Let's say for the light mode, we use red 500. And there we go. This is how it's gonna look like. And you can just always customize these values. And these are the values that I'll be using. Now let's try to build the create page. Let's take a look at it pretty quickly. It is gonna be looking like this, even though this image is a little bit blurry, but like it's gonna be really clear once we build it. Again, we have the navbar at the top with a title, and we just have a form element with 3 different input boxes, right? Then a button that just says add the product. And this is basically what we're gonna build just in a second. So from this page, again, let's just try to build the maybe UI first. And before that, we can just create a state. I will say, maybe we can just call it as a new product. Let's say new product, set new product. We're going to have all these states. Let's import the use state. Basically, it is an object with name, price, and image. All of them are for now just empty string. And let's try to build the UI. Again, we're going to have a container, and let's try to import it. Maximum width is going to be, let's say, container.small. This is coming from the documentation as well. Let's say we'll have a vertical stack imported. The spacing is going to be 8. And inside this vertical stack, we're going to have a bunch of different things. So the first one is going to be a heading component. Let's get it. We'll say create new product, just like this. And we can say this is going to be h1 element. This is how we can do it. You say as h1 or p tag, or span, anything that you would like to put. And then you'll say size is going to be 2x large, text align of centered, and we will just say margin bottom of 8. And below this heading, we're going to have one box element. Let's say import the box. We're going to have these styles now. Width is going to be full. We can just say use, for the background, use color mode value. Not mode, but it should be value. Let's try to delete this import. We should have the mode value. On the light mode, we're going to give the white color, and in the dark mode, it's going to be gray 800. Then let's say P of, okay, so it should be like this. Padding of 6. Let's say rounded of LG, and finally shadow of medium. So these are going to be the styles that we have for the box. Let's just try to have another vertical stack. Okay, let's just try to create it. This is going to take the spacing of 4. And we'll just basically have a couple of different input components. So let's say input. This can be a self-close tag, like this, right? We can give a placeholder. I will say product name, and name is going to be, we could just say, this is the name field that we give, right? And we can give a value. Let's say this is going to be new product state dot name. It should be bind into this field only. And when we type into this, let's say on change, we would like to just update the name field, right? This is the only place that you'd like to update. And I'll basically get the other 2 input elements, which is going to be the price as well as the image. So I'll save, and you can take a look at it, maybe grab it from the GitHub repo or just type this out. Basically, we have a placeholder, name, type, as well as value and on change. This is for the price, right? This is what we're updating, and same for the image. Below this, we're going to have one button. Let's put it here and try to import the button. And once we clicked it, we would like to just handle add product. Let's create that function. For now, we could just say console log the new product. Okay, let's save and just try to see this component in action. Okay, this is the output that we have. Let's open up the terminal or the console. I will just give it a name. Let's delete these. Let's say iPhone XR. Price could be 200. Image URL, let's give one of them. If we click it, we're going to get to see this in the terminal, right? We can just get all these values stored in this state. And now what we can do is basically implement the functionality, right? Once we clicked it, it should immediately save this to the database. And to be able to make this work, we could use just plain fetch, right? We could run it with use effects, use it in this component. But what I want to do is create a global store, which is going to be our global state. And we're going to be able to just use it in any components. So let me just show you a quick diagram. So let's say this is how our application looks like. We have the app.jsx root component at the top, and it has different children, right? And their children have different children as well. So if you have one state here, then if you want to use it here, right? First you need to pass it to this one, and from here you need to pass it to this one. And let's say this also has a child. You need to take this and pass it to that child as well, which is not really optimal, right? And it is also not performant. It's because if you update the state only in this component, all of them are gonna be re-rendered as well because they are using that state. But if we have some kind of global state up here, right? Let's say we just have one state here that we'd like to use in any of these components. We can directly pass it into any of these components that we have, right? So they don't really need to get it from different components, but they'll just say, hey, global state, could you give me this one that you have? And they can use it. And if they update the state, only the components that use it will be re-rendered. Now, I know this might look a little bit complicated, especially with my drawing, but once we implement it, it's going to be actually pretty simple, pretty simple than you think. For this, I'll be using a package. Let's say npm install zoo_stand. If you cannot see it, let me just bring this up here. npm install zoo_stand. So try to just press enter and it's going to install it. What we can do under the source, create a store folder. And inside this store folder, we're going to have a product.js file. Okay, so in this file, we'd like to just have some kind of global state and some functions that we can use. I will say import create function from, let's say, zoo_stand. There we go. Now we'll just create a hook basically. Let's say const use product store, and we'd like to export it so that we can use it in different files. This is how you can do it. This is how we generally do. Calling the create function, which takes a callback, and this takes a setter set as the argument, right? This is going to be the setter function. And instead of just having the function body, let's just return an object. This is how we can do it. This is basic JavaScript knowledge, right? If you have a function wrapped with this brackets, then that means you're returning an object. Okay, from here, well, we're going to have some products, which is going to be an empty array initially. And let's say set products. We are going to put some products into this setter function, and it's going to set the products state with it, right? This is basically what we have in use state. When you say const, oops, if I can type. So we have state and set state, which is equal to use state. Now, the initial value could be an empty array. So this is exactly what we are doing. We have the state as well as the set state function. And this would be local state, but here this is global state because we can use it in any components in our application. And let's try to maybe just see this in action. Let's say I want to use this products in navbar. I'll just go here. I will say use product store, import it, and just get the products. Let's say products. Okay, so this is how easy it is to use it actually. If I want to use this products in, let's say, app.jsx, I'll just go here, put the exact same line, import it, and now I can use it. So this is the exact same thing that I have just explained. We have some kind of global state. In this case, it is zoo_stand, right? This is coming from the zoo_stand, and we can really use this state in any place that you'd like to have. In this case, we're using it in app.jsx, or let's say in the navbar component. We just call the hook and get the value out of it. So it is really convenient. You'll be using this a lot once your projects gets larger. And I just wanted to mention this. Now we're not going to be using the products here. We can delete this one, but in the navbar, I think we are not also going to be using it. Let's delete it and just try to create a function so that we can create a product. So I will say create product. This is going to be, let's say, an async function. And at this point, I can just shut up the copilot. let's say Copilot, disable it. Okay, so that is not getting any annoying, and I can just try to explain maybe a little bit more. Let's say new product, and looks like it didn't. So let me just say disable Copilot. Okay, now it should be disabled, I believe. Let's just see. Okay, it isn't. Okay, now I think it should be working out. So we're gonna just pass a new product into this function, right? So that we can really create it in the database. We're gonna just check for the name. Let's say if new product dot name is not provided, or let's say if new product dot image is not provided, or let's say if the price isn't provided. In this case, we can return a success of false out of this function. Let's say success is gonna be false, and message is gonna be something like, please fill in all fields, and just a dot at the end. Now, if we pass this if check, that means we can create a product. I'll say const response await fetch, and we're gonna put our endpoint. Now we can just say HTTP localhost 5000/API/products. But now every time we make a request, I don't really want to put all this part. I just want to put /API/products, and it should prefix it with this localhost part. For this, we can visit this vidconfig.js file and just say server. Under this, we have the proxy field, and inside this, we can have /API, which is going to be an object. Let's say the target is going to be equal to HTTP localhost 5000. So basically, this means whenever we visit /API, you should prefix it with this value that you see here. And with this, now we can really delete this part and have our endpoint just like this. And since we are returning, or since we are calling a post method, let's put an object. Let's say method is gonna be post, just like this. Then we will say headers content type. Let's say content type of application JSON. Okay, and lastly, we'll just say body is gonna be JSON.stringify, where we just stringify the new product object that we just got as an argument. And after this response, we can say const data, and we'll be using this res.json so that we can extract the data out of it. Finally, we'll just update our state. Let's say call the setter function, right? This is what we are having in the first place. Set, we will just get the state. So this is going to be the previous state that we had. Now we will just return an object just like this. So we will say products, just keep all the previous products that we had. Let's say state.products, and we'll just add the new product that we just got back from the backend, right? Let's take a look at the controller. How are we returning it? Once we create the product, we return it under the data. So we should say data.data actually, right? Okay, I hope this is gonna work. Let's just try to test this out. I'll go into the create page. We'll like to call this function once we click to that button, right? So on click, we actually call this handle add product function. So let's navigate into this function. I will say maybe here use product store, which is going to give us the, let's say const create product. This is the function that we're just extracting, and we'd like to call that function. Let's say create product, pass it as the state, right? Let's say async. This is going to take a bit time, so let's say await, and this is going to return us some values, right? Let's say success and message. So in the error case, we're gonna be getting those actually, right? Success false, and we have a message. So in the success case, we can also just return an object as well. So let's say success is gonna be true in this case. I'll maybe copy it, paste it. For the message, I would say product created successfully. Okay. Now we can really go ahead and destructure these values. Let's say console log the success, and we can just get the message. Okay, so let's save and just try to see how this is gonna look like. I'll say iPhone XR, put a value, and for the image, let's just put this one. There we go. It says success false, but product created successfully. Why this is false? Let's just try to see if this is coming as a falsy value. Okay, this should be true actually. And if we take a look at the database, we should be able to see this product. Let's just test this out. Okay, so I am in the database. Let's scroll to the bottom. There we go. We just got the value, right? That means we can create products actually. So I'll just try to create another thing. Let's say wireless earbuds. For the price, let's just put 99. Now for the images, I am getting those as auto completed images. What we can do is just visit Unsplash, which you can grab beautiful free images. Let's say earbuds. We can copy the image URL, image address, and paste it to here. And at the product, there we go. We just got the success of true and product created. Once product is created, instead of seeing this in the console, maybe we can see a notification, which is something that we called as toast. And this is going to be coming from our package, right? Our Chakra UI library. This is how we can use it. We have this toast. Let's just grab it, go into the create page, and just maybe try to import it and use it. Okay, here we will say if success is true, then we would like to show a toast. Let's say if success is false, let's just handle it first. We'll say toast, call it with this object. We can say title is gonna be error. And for the description, let's say we're just gonna put the message that we got. And for the status, we can put the error. And you can also remove this quotes. It doesn't really matter. And there are different options like duration. You can put it for 3 seconds, or we can put it for 5 seconds. Doesn't really matter. I think the default one is 5. I'm not really sure. We can take a look at it in the documentation, but I'll just leave it as the default. Let's say is closable gonna be true, so that we can close it if we really want to. And in the else case, let's just say else. We're just gonna put the success case. Okay, just like this. Let's save and maybe test this out. I will say, let's just this time get a, I don't know, like a shoes, some shoes. Okay, I'll just say Nike shoes. Price could be like this, and image URL pasted. Okay, there we go. It says product created successfully. Once we create the product, we should remove these states, right? It should reset. Reset. We can go here and just say set new product and reset this state. Okay, so with this now we have a bunch of different products that we have just created. What we can do is go into the homepage and just maybe try to fetch those items. So this is how the homepage will look like. We'll just say current products title, and if we don't have any products, we're gonna see this text. Once we click to this, it should take us to the create page. And if we have some products, then we're just gonna see them in this cards, right? With the name, price, and the image, as well as these buttons, so that we can either edit it or delete it. Okay, so let's try to build it then. I'll go into the VS Code, let's say close all these so that they are not really distracting. Under the home page, we would like to just create a container first. So what I'll be doing is be just give a little bit space, wrap it like this. Okay, so instead of a div, we're gonna have a container actually. So this is gonna be coming from the Chakra UI as always. It's gonna have some maximum width with a padding, right? Container, it doesn't import it for some reason. Okay, there we go. Now we can really import it. And below this, we're gonna have a vertical stack. And let's try to import it as well. This is gonna take spacing of 8. Okay, inside we'll have a text. So again, I'll just copy it and paste it because this is a gradient text. There we go with these styles. And for each product, we will basically have this grid, right? So they are going to have some spacing and they're going to be responsive as well. For this, we're going to be using something called simple grid component. Okay, so this is how you would use it. You have columns, spacing, and like here spacing is 10. If you say 1, it is just going to update. So this is how it looks on 4, like 8. You can say columns is going to be 3 and it's just going to update as you wish. So we're going to be using this component so that we can really show a product card. But before that, let's handle this case where we just see no products, right? I'll just go and get that field. So here I'll just paste it with a link. So I just pasted just because we can speed up the process. Basically we have a text, font size of X large, text align centered, color, font weight with a text, with an emoji, and link takes us to the create page. So we say we have a text that says create a product. It is a span and this is the color. When we hover over it, it's gonna take an underline style. Let's see this in action. So there we go. This is how that looks. We have the title as well as the span element. Okay, if I click to it, it should take me to the create page, but looks like it doesn't. Why this is the case? Let me just refresh this page. Okay, it doesn't work. Let's say if we delete this part. Okay, so it still doesn't work. Maybe text should be above the link. Okay, there is no way for this to work. Maybe this link is coming from Chakra UI. Okay, that's why this is the case. It actually takes href, but instead of coming from Chakra, I'll be getting it from, let me just do Control Z a couple of times. There we go. This is going to be coming from React Router DOM. So I'll say import link from React Router DOM. Now this should be working out. I'll click to it. There we go. We can go to the create page. And maybe it is time to build the product cards under that simple grid component. So we are going to see 3 different cards on larger screens. We're going to see two cards on the medium screens and 1 card in smaller screens. So we're going to see what that means basically. Before here, I will say simple grid component. Get it from Chakra UI, and we're gonna give our styles. Let's say columns, like this. We're gonna make it to be responsive. That's why I open up a different object. Let's say on the base, it's gonna be 1, and medium screens and above, it is gonna be 2. Larger screens and above is gonna be 3 cards at a time. Let's give spacing of 10. Let's say width is gonna be full. Oops, it should be full just like this. And inside, we're gonna basically taking the products and map over it. So first, let's just try to create a function so that we can really just fetch those products, right? So after this create product function that we have up here, I will create fetch products async function. Okay, so inside this, we'd like to basically send a request to our endpoint and grab those products. So I'll say const res await fetch and our endpoint, which was API products. Then we're going to get some data, obviously. Let's just extract it. Then we will say set products data dot data. So this is what we are returning. These are the products. Let's save and just try to run this function, right? I will say once we get into the home page, you should be running that under a use effect. So this is what we're gonna have. First, let's just get that function. I'll say const fetch products, which is gonna be coming from use product store, right? And we're gonna run this function basically. Fetch products, call it, and it wants you to put it as a dependency. Okay, now if we save, maybe we can just console log it. Let's say products, and here we can just say console log the products. Okay, let's try to see in our console, we should be able to see 6 different products that we have in our database. So we have this one, this, and the very last one we have created was shoes. And before that, we have created earbuds, and I think that was iPhone XR. Okay, so looks like everything is working out as expected. Now we're gonna take these products and map over it and just put it under this simple grid component. So I will just go below. I'll say products.map. For each product, we would like to render out this part. It should be like this, where we'll have a product card component. Let's say product card. Okay, we're gonna pass the product into it as well as a key. So let's say key, first of all, it's gonna be product dot underscore ID, and we're gonna pass the product as it is. Okay, so let's try to create this component. I will go under the components, say product card.jsx, and RAFC for this, let's save, and maybe just try to import it. Okay, this is gonna take the product as the very first so prop, right? And first, let's just try to build the UI. I will delete this and just try to return a box, which is coming from Chakra UI. Okay, and I'll just get these styles so that we can really speed up the process a little bit. Okay, so I just grabbed it. Now I will paste it. Basically, we have a shadow, rounded, overflow is hidden, a little bit of transition, and on the hover state, this card is gonna go up a little bit on the Y direction, right? And inside we'll have an image element. Let's paste it. This image is coming from Chakra UI. It's gonna take the product image. And for the alt, it's going to take the product name. Now we have props validation ESLint warning, which we can really turn off by using this React/prop types. Let's go under the ESLint. Under the rules, I'll just say React slash, let's say prop types is going to be off. Once we save it, now we're not going to get any of those errors. Okay. Once we have done this, we can create a different box, and inside this box, first we'll have this padding of 4, and we're gonna have the heading, which is gonna be the product name. So let's grab it, paste it, import the heading, and we will have a text. This is gonna put the product price. So let's just get the text element, and for the color, we will have this text color variable. Let's just we're going to create it just in a second. And finally, we will have a horizontal stack. Let's paste it as well. Let's import it, icon button. Let's say get the edit icon and delete icon. On click. So we're going to be calling those. For now, let's delete them. And as I said, I just copy and paste this so that we can really speed up the process. But basically, what we have written here is just this UI that we have. We have an image, right? We have a text, the name, product, price, as well as these buttons, which are under a horizontal stack so that they are next to each other. I hope this makes sense at this point. And we're using this icon button with an icon. Basically, this means this is going to be a button and it's going to have an icon into it. And all these are coming from the documentation. So let's just try to create this variable called text color. So I will say this is going to be using the use color mode value. On the light mode, it's going to be gray. 600, and in the dark mode it's going to be gray 200. Let's do the same thing for the background. I'll say BG is going to be white and gray 800. Now let's try to use this text color as well as the background. So this is the text color, and let's just say BG of BG. Okay. Now if we save, we should be able to see some output in the UI. There we go. We have all of our products. Now here it says the image is not shown, is because these are the things that have this example image. Obviously this is not going to show us anything. That was just when we were testing out in the Postman, right? Okay, one more thing we can fix is that if there are no products found, we can only show this, but if we have some products, then we shouldn't be able to see this text. Let's go into the homepage, and we will just wrap this. First, let's just cut it. I will say if products.length is equal to 0, only then render this part. Now we're not going to see that. And here you can see when we hover over it, the cards are just going up a little bit. Okay, so this is how we can fetch the products. And now once we click to this delete button, we should be able to delete them. First, let's just try to create a delete function under the product.js file. So let's shrink this one as well. We will say delete product, which is going to be an async function, and it's going to take the product ID as the first argument. And we're going to be calling the fetch method. First, let's just say response await fetch API products, and we're going to pass the product ID where the method is going to be delete, just like this. Then we'll say const data. Let's get the data from here, and we can just check if it is successfully done or not. We'll say if data is like data.success is false, then we can say return success false, and the message that we are getting from the backend, then we can just update our state. Let's say set, if I can type, let's say we're gonna have the state where we'd like to just update the product, right? The one that we have just deleted, we're going to filter out. So this might be a little bit complicated, but this is basically a little bit of JavaScript where we use the filter method and just delete the current product from the state. If you don't understand this part, I'll just try to show this in the UI just in a second. But after this, we should be able to just say success of true, your product has been deleted successfully, right? I'll say success true, and for the message, we can just get it from the backend. Okay, let's save and just try to call this function once we click to that delete icon, which is this one. Let's say on click, call the handle delete product, which is a function that we should create up here. It's going to be an async function, which is going to take the product ID as the first argument. We would like to send it, let's say product._ID. Okay, so here we'll just go ahead and say, first we'd like to get the use product store, right? This is going to give us the delete product function. And then we're going to call that function basically. Let's say await delete product. We're going to pass the PID into it. It's going to give us the success state as well as the message. And this should be destructured. Okay, we can just see this in the terminal. And what we can also do is just show a toast. I will say const toast use toast. This is what we have done just a couple of minutes ago. Let's say if the success is false, we can really show an error message basically, but else we can show the success message just like this. And let's try to save and maybe delete a product. I will refresh. These are the products that we just fetched. Let's click to this one. Okay, product deleted. And as you can see, UI is just being updated immediately. It is because we are using this line. If I delete this, save it. Now, whenever I delete something, it is not gonna update the UI. Even though it is being deleted, I need to refresh so that it just update the UI. So this is what that does, basically update the UI immediately, right? So let's say without needing a refresh. Okay, so I hope this makes sense now. Let's refresh. We just got all these products. We can delete them, and maybe it is time to update one of them. Once we click to it, it should open up a model. So what is a model? Let's just see. From Chakra UI, they give us out of the box. Okay, so it is going to be this kind of component where we can just really see the product details. Let me just show this if I have it. There we go. Once you click to the update product button, you're going to get to see this model with name, price, as well as the image. You can update any of those values and either cancel it or update it. And it's going to again update the UI immediately. Now first, let's just try to see how we can create a model component. If you take a look at the code, basically you wrap everything with a model, and you have things like model overlay, model content, header, close button, body, and footer component. So this is how that looks. And you can change this content with anything that you want. Maybe you'd like to remove the footer component, the header component, maybe even the close button. You can really just customize it however you'd like to. And so yeah, let's just try to build it. I will go into the product cart. Let's close these so that they are not distracting. And I think below this very last box that we have, we can create a model. So let's say model imported from Chakra UI, and this is taking is open and on close fields. Let's grab them from use disclosure hook. I'll go at the very top, just try to import this one. Okay, so into this model, we're gonna pass that is open and on close fields, just like they have in the documentation. And inside this, we can have a model overlay. Let's try to import it. Then we will have a model content, which we're gonna put everything into it. Let's say model content. Okay, first things first, we're gonna put the header component as well as the close button component. Let's import them. There we go. Below this, we're gonna have a model body. So what I'll be doing is basically copy and paste and then just walk you through it. Let's say model body. We're gonna have a vertical stack, the input element. Let's say maybe we can for now just delete the value and on change so that it is not distracting at all. Okay, so this is what we have. And once we click to this button that says edit icon, we would like to just open up this model. So I'll say on click, let's say we would like to call the onOpen function. Let's try to see this in action. I'll click to this one. There we go. We just have a model that is opened, and we would like to see this bottom part as well. For this, we will go below the model body, and we'll just have a model footer component, just like in the documentation. Okay, I'll import this, import the button. For now, we can just delete the on click. And if we click to the cancel, it should close the model. Okay, just like this, and it works on all these products. Now, what we can do is that once we click to this button, we can just fill up this form with the product details. For this, we can use a state. You can give it any name for it. I'll just say updated product and set updated product setter function. We will say use state. The initial value is just going to be the product that we got. Let's import the use state, and we're going to put this initial value into the, let's say, to our inputs, right? I'll just say value, and this is going to be updated product.name, and let's give the price as well as the image. Just like this. Let's just see this in action. Once I click to it, I can get the details for this product. Let's click to this one. It just works out as expected. Now what we can do is that once we click to this button, it should update it in the database, which means we should visit this file and just add a new function, which is going to be update product. And this is going to be an async function. First, it's going to take the product ID as well as the updated fields. Let's say updated product. Okay, here we'll just go into it. So in this function, we'll just say const response await fetch, and we'll just get our endpoint. Let's say API products and then the product ID. The method is going to be put headers of content type, and we'll just put the body and stringify it. Then we're going to get the data out of it, right? Then we can just say if data is not success, as always, success or false and the message, but else we'll just say set and get the state. We will just update the product that we just updated. So this is going to look a bit weird maybe at first. Okay, we'll just return an object where we just say products. Let's say state.products. These are the previous products that we had in this state. We will just have a product for each of them. We are basically mapping through it. We will say product.id. If it is equal to the PID that we just passed, then we can just return the data. But else we'll just leave the product as it is. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Now, what we have done is just basically update this state in the UI so that we can really see the latest value. And let me just put it, update the UI immediately without needing a refresh. Okay, so we can maybe save this and just try to test this out. Once we click to this update button, we can call a function. So I'll just say on click handle update product, and we need to pass the product ID into it. So let's make it like this. We'll say product.id as well as the updated product state. Let's try to create it up here. Let's say const handle update product function, which is going to be an async function that takes these arguments, and this is going to call the update product function that is coming from the use product store. Did we already import it? Okay, so we already have. Let's take this then, put it here, right? And we can delete this now. And basically here, we'll just call that update product function with the product ID as well as the updated product. And once we update the product, we can just call the onClose function. So let's say await. Okay, let's try to test this out. Here it says updated product has already been declared. Okay, so it should be update product function. Now we should say update product function here as well. I just had a typo, sorry about this, but now it should be working out. Okay, so we haven't used this state, is that once we type something into the inputs, we should update those values, right? We'll say on change. We'll like to basically update the name and price as well as the image. Okay, so this is basically what we're doing, just trying to update the state. Okay, now this should be working out. Let's refresh. There we go. I'll just say wireless earbuds. Let's say price is going to be $199. Update. There we go. It's being updated. Let's refresh. It is still the same because this is being updated in the database. Once we update, we can maybe show some kind of toast, right? I'll just say update. There we go, but we don't have any feedback. Let's go here and grab the success and message. And we can return a success state once we update it successfully, right? I'll just say return success of true and the message that we got from the backend. I will say after we close this, we can just say if it is not success, we can just show the error, but else. So it is what we have here maybe. Okay, here we'll just have a else statement with the success message. Let's try to see this in action. Refresh, say 199. Okay, it's just being updated, but we don't really have any message. Maybe we are not returning anything from the backend. Let's go under the controllers for the product controller on the update. So we don't really have any message in the try case, right? We just return the data. So instead, we can just say product updated successfully. We can do it manually, right? Let's try to update it again. Let's say, okay, so we just can see the message as well. And just one more thing I want to mention, if you don't really add this part, right? And if you try to update anything, it is not going to update the UI, right? You should refresh to be able to get the latest value. That's why we put it in the first place. So I think with this, we have completed everything. We can just really go into the light mode, dark mode. We can create a new product and we can delete or update. So with this, I think this is gonna be it for this part as well. And next, we're going to deploy this application. Okay, so welcome back to the very last part of this tutorial where we would like to deploy the application that we have just built. Now, this is the current state of our application. When we visit localhost 5000, we can get our Express app, right? We have our API. And we visit localhost 5173, we get our React application. But couldn't we make it so that once we visit localhost 5000, we can get both our API as well as our React application? And we can really do so. This is what we're going to be doing just in a second. And we're going to be doing this so that we can deploy our entire application under one domain, right? We both serve the server as well as the client under the same domain. Let's try to see how we can do it. I will basically go into the server.js, and here we'll like to just add one configuration for the deployment. Now, I will just get the path module. Let's say import path from path. This is a built-in Node module. And I'd like to get a variable. Let's go here and just say const __ their name, where we get the value from path.resolve. So I'll explain what this does. Below our routes, which is the products, we will just check for the environment. So let's say if we are in the production or if we are in the development. Let's say if we are in the production, that means we deployed this application. So we'd like to have some kind of a different configuration. In this case, we would like to make this front-end folder to be our static assets, right? Because this is the React application that we have. And when you deploy your React application, you basically run this npm run build, which gives you a dist folder. So let me just show this actually. I'll kill all the terminals that I have. I'll create a new one, cd into the front end, and I'll just say npm run build. So Vite is gonna go ahead and create a dist folder, and here it says building for production. There we go, it has just been built and we got the dist folder. This is the folder that we would be using in the production for the React application that we have. So we'd like to make this to be our static assets file so that we can really serve our front-end application. So I'll say app.use, express.static, path.join, their name, go under the front end, and we have the dist folder, right? So just like this, we make this dist folder to be our static assets. And this path.join with their name basically says go under the root, which is here, and then from there go under the front end and then under the dist. So this is what that does. And we will say if we send any request, let's say app.get anything, right, asterisk, like anything other than this, we should be able to render our React application. So we'll just get the request and response, and we will basically say res.send file, and we'll like to send index.html that we have under the dist. So here I'll say path.resolve their name we'll go under the front end, under the dist, where we have the index.html file. So this is what we're going to return anything we visit, right? Other than this route, we are going to just return the React application that we have. So let's try to save and maybe we can run this. What I'll be doing is maybe delete the node modules folder that we have. So this is going to ask me for the permission. Let me just accept it and say delete permanently. And I'd like to delete this node modules as well. So why am I deleting this? Is because when we deploy our code to GitHub, we are not going to have those folders. And let's delete the dist as well. Okay, so once we deploy our code to GitHub, this is basically what we'll have. We just have the backend folder, the front end, and these files. We're not going to have any node modules. So we'd like to import them, right? Install them so that we can really deploy it. And we need to create a script for this. That was for the development. Now let's say build script, where we'd like to first install dependencies for the backend, right? We'll just say npm install, and then we'll say npm install, but this time for the front end. So I'll say prefix front end folder. This basically says run this command under this folder, and this is going to install the node modules for the front end. Once we do this, we'd like to build the front end application. So we'll say run the npm run build command, but again under the front end folder. Once we have done this, let's see what's going to happen. I'll just open up my terminal and I'll say, let me just cd into the root, right? Not into the front end, not into the back end, but in the root. I'll say npm run build. Oops, I have a typo. Let's say npm run build with a d at the end. Okay, so what is going to happen is that it is going to run this command. First, it's going to install the dependencies for the backend. There we go. Then it's going to install it for the front end. And then it's going to build the front-end application, which is currently doing, I think. So it is installing the packages. Just in a second, it's going to create the dist folder. And this is the command that we're going to be running in the deployment so that it can install all these packages, then build our application. Once we build it, we'll like to start it. So we'll say start command. This time, instead of nodemon, we'll just be using node because this is just going to be running once in the production environment. Okay, so with that in mind, we can also see we got the dist folder. The build has been completed successfully. So with this, it should be ready to go, right? We have our scripts that we can build our application and we can start our application in the deployment, right? So yeah, these are the scripts and this is the configuration, just about 5 lines of code and nothing else, right? This is all we have to do. Take the dist folder, make it static assets, and render the index.html, which is going to be our React application, when we visit any routes other than this route, right? Let's try to save this file and just maybe test it out. Now that we have built it, we can start our application with this command. I'll say npm start or npm run start. It is the same thing. This is going to start it under the 5000 port. Let's see. Okay, there we go. It is started MongoDB connected. Let's visit localhost 5000. Now, okay, so we just got an issue why this is the case. In the home page. Okay, wait, do we have a typo? Yes, we have, because the node.env is not equal to the production for now. It is equal to the nothing actually, right? So what we can do is when we run the npm start, we can just make the node.env to be equal to the production. And when we run the dev, we can make this to be equal to the development. Okay, let's save and open up our terminal. Oops, I just made a mistake. I was going to open my terminal. Let's kill this and just say npm run start, which is going to make the node.env environment variable to be equal to the production. Now let's try to visit the localhost 5000. There we go. We can just get our React application. So if you remember, that was our server, but now we actually get our React application on this route. This is exactly what we have done. Under the localhost 5000, we can both get our API as well as our React application. Now we can really just delete one of them, right? We can update. It just works out. And let's just try to create one. I'll say earbuds. Let's just put a value. And I'll try to put an image URL. Let's just get it from the Unsplash pretty quickly. Okay, so I just grabbed the image URL for this one and I will paste it. Product added. Let's go here and there we go. Everything is working. And this is what we would like to push to our GitHub account. So let's go ahead and create a repo first. So here I am in my GitHub account. I just said create a new repo. I will say MERN crash course. There we go. I'll first make it private. Once I publish this video, it's going to be public. If you really want to, you can go with the public so that everyone can see this in your GitHub account. For now, I'll go with private. Let's say create a repo. And what I want to do is initialize this as a Git repo. I'll say git init. And before I commit any of my changes, I would like to first just ignore this .env folder or .env file. Now I can create a git ignore under the root, or else I can grab this one, put it under the root. Okay, let's move it. So now this actually ignores all these folders and files. I also want to ignore the .env. Let's put it and save. And as you can see now, .env is grayed out. That means this is this is ignored by Git so that nobody can see our environment variables. Okay, so with this, I think we can just push all of our changes. I will say add all of them to the staging area. And for the commit message, we could say project completed. Let's say commit. And now we'd like to push all of our changes. Let's go into the GitHub. We already have an existing repository. I'll copy this and paste it into my terminal, which is going to push the changes that I have in my local machine to the internet, right? To this GitHub repo. There we go. Now we have all of our changes, all of our source code. The latest commit was just now. Let's go and deploy this application. For this, we'll be using render.com. You can use other options. This is what I'd like to use. It's really easy to deploy and free to use. Let's say deploy a web service. We would like to get it from the GitHub account, right? MERN crash course. And okay, so it should be this. Let's say connect. Okay, so we just have all the fields like filled up for us. What we can change for the build command, we have npm run build. And for the start, we had npm run start. These are the commands that we have created under the package.json, right? Build and start. And I think you can just leave everything as it is. Choose the free plan. It has like one disadvantage is that it is just going to go in active state once you don't visit your application more than 15 minutes. And like this is fine for the side projects. If you want to just get it immediately opened, maybe you can go with a paid plan for $7 a month. But I think free plan should work for most of us, right? For the environment variables, let's just grab them under our .env file. I'll say Mongo URI and get the value. And I think one more thing I can mention, let me just put those. Let's say add one more, port is going to be equal to 5000. So here I said the database name is going to be products. That's why actually in our MongoDB account, let me just quickly log in. So under the collections, we see this products and then one more products. The first one is the database name actually. So if you put products_db when we first started this project, this also would be products_db. Okay, so I just wanted to mention this out. This is the database name, and then the inside one is the collection name, which we called it as products, right? Okay, so with this, now we have, let's see, two different documents, which are these ones. Okay, that was just something to keep that in mind. Now let's say deploy the web service. This is gonna take a bit time, but hopefully it should be deployed out. If we got some errors, we'll try to fix it. Once this is done, I'll just be right back. This should take about 1 minute. Okay, there we go. It just says your service is live and everything was successfully done, I think. Let's just say visit this application. MERN crash course on render.com. This is the actually deployed application. We can go into the dark mode, light mode. It just works as expected. Let's try to update this one. Let's say wireless earbuds 2. There we go. It's just being updated. Let's try to refresh this page. And it should still have the previous value because this is coming from the database. Let's update it to be back value, right? Let's try to create a new one. I'll just say test 1, 2, 3 and grab any of those images. There we go. We just got the test as well. Let's try to delete them and we can delete basically everything. And it's going to say in this case, no products found and create a new product. So with this, I think we just completed this entire application and this is responsive as well. I might forgot to show this, but once we hit this breakpoint, the navbar goes into the column direction. That's why we see it and it just works well, right? Let's try to create a couple of different products. I just want to show this. Let's say 1, 2, 3, just grab one image. Let's just create this one. Okay, so here if we just go into this view, right, we just see 3 elements next to each other. Now they are 2 side by side and now just 1 and it is completely responsive, right? It just works really, really well as expected. So this is gonna be it for this course. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.